What up, Marsh Pod? We're recording this little old school action, no video today. We had a water heater break in the apartment above us a little over a week ago, so our apartment has been chaotic. We're operating at a half of it. We had some rain coming down at 11 p.m. inside of our bathroom. That led to some flooding. That led to some reno work that continues to be done. So hopefully we'll be back on camera next week, though no promises, just with the joys of living through this endeavor. Like I said, half apartment operational, so we're working through it. We'll grind through it, but for now, no video today, though I'll spare you that anyway. Maybe a celebration of rejoice for some. What we're diving into today, though, is the ORIGINators. The OGs, they kicked off the season. They were absolutely dominant through the opening 2 months that ended with a Cascadia win, a win that, as you look back on it, a little surprising, which we'll get into, but a team that was a favorite early on for the race to one, although that glory, that shine has certainly started to fade as they've gone 1-3 in their last 4 games, 2-3, obviously, if you include that Cascadia win back on January 24th. They haven't really had a dominant win since that mid-January time period when they beat up on SimWorld Africa. Since then, it has just been a completely different team. Let's look into why. What's been going on? You look at the 3 teams that they lost to: Europe, Atlantis, and Asia Pacific. Those are 3 teams that are kind of either on the rise or figuring things out. They have a combined record of 30-24. Those are 3 teams. You say, look, if we're going to lose to them, those are good basketball teams, average to above average. Atlantis has been red hot. Europe is kind of rounded into form. Those are good ball clubs. Their one win came against a pretty decent Bad Boys team who's hovering around 500 now at 8-10. And even then, they needed a good fourth quarter to put them away. Truth be told, maybe the Intercontinental region, not so bad. Not so bad. But what's changed? Their bench has been bleeding points, but that's kind of always been the case. They simply have not been able to gain ground or build leads without Cooper Flag out there. But that's, again, something that they were dealing with from the onset. Their bench would bleed minutes, Cooper Flag would come in, staunch the bleeding, build the lead, and get rolling. But now, the starters aren't even helping out like they were before. Victorious Ilgauskas has not been impactful. In the last 4 of the last 5 games, he has been a minus in the plus-minus since that Cascadia win, in which, like we said, they've gone 2-3. During the first 10 games, he was never a negative on the floor. That's now happened again 4 of the last 5 times. Jay Laster continues to just be neutral. He continues to be as middle of the road as it comes. Since Cascadia, again, a lot of this stuff is going to be coming from that game. He's been -2, 0, -2, +15, and +2. When the OGs were obliterating teams, Jay Laster was on the floor, +29 against the North, +15 against Run DMV, and +15 against Best Coast Ballers, +7 against Bay Area, +21 against Rocky Mountain. Those nights, they're not happening anymore. Sure, the +15 against Bad Boys, outside of that, it just has not been there. That has meant that Cooper Flag, who has almost always been a positive, no longer is. Against Cascadia, -2. Against Asia Pacific, -3. Against Atlantis, -11. Against Bad Boys, +8. And then against Europe, -6. For reference, back to the beginning of the season, +30 against Beast of the East, +24 against the North, +16 against Run DMV, +28 against Best Coast, +20 against Rocky Mountain. He has not had a double-digit plus-minus night since January 2nd. We are recording this on March 4th. Their defense has disappeared, starting in that Cascadia win. In their first 10 games, they allowed more than 60 points only twice, including 5 games where they allowed 50 points or less. Since then, they've allowed 70-plus in 3 of their last 5, 62-plus in 4 of their last 5, and have an average points against per game of 70.6, which is 10 points higher than their season average of 60.7, which again is inflated because of these last 5 games. That 70.6 points against per game would be 23rd in the league right now, tied with reigning Trace. How do they fix it? Well, you get better. We talk about star players, their impact on offense, how when that star sits, what happens to the offense? Can they still operate? But what needs reminding in that anti-one-star argument that we have championed here on the Marsh Pod and Marsh Mobiles is the impact that star can have on defense. And Cooper Flagg is most definitely a two-way impactful star. So if he is not impactful on defense, how does that change things? In the case of the OGs, Flagg has simply not been that guy. He's in the negative in 4 of the last 5 games. We've talked about that. His defense is not disruptive. He's the fulcrum of the OG's defense, turning away shots, clogging the paint, all of that Spurs transition counterattacks for an offense that likes to get up and down the floor. That has not existed over the past 5 games. This was the reason we ruled out one-star teams, because if the one guy isn't getting it done, then your hopes are gone. In this case, it's the one guy not getting it done on defense. Reminder, they need 36 to beat Cascadia. He has had huge nights, Cooper Flagg has. His offense has still been there, but he is not impacting the game defensively like he was before. Viktoras Ilgauskas has not been impacting the game defensively like he was before. Now that shouldn't, Flagg's struggles, should not absolve the rest of this roster. Last season, Jay Laster shot 47% from the floor and 44% from deep. This season, his season average, he is 40% from the floor and 33% from deep. Over the last 5 games, he's shooting 38% from the floor and 30% from deep. We mentioned that Cascadia game kind of feels like a miracle that they won it. Jay Laster went 1 for 10 in that game. Their highest plus-minus was Justin McGavin at +8 in 11 minutes, but he didn't score a single point. They were saved because Cascadia shot 6 of 20 from deep. Now you could say, hey, that's a point of their defense. 3-point shooting is almost always down to luck. It is not like defense in the paint, hand in the face on drives. 3-point shooting is a lot of due to luck from either forcing misses. Now, not saying that's the only way to make teams miss from 3, but the vast majority of that impact is a little bit of luck. They got a lot of bit of luck against them. Meanwhile, Daniel Irvin was awful in that game himself. He went 1 of 9. Cooper Flagg saved him with 36, but he still was -2. They have quite literally, well, I guess not literally, but quite almost literally no other scores. Christ Coates is their 3rd leading scorer, and he plays 11.4 minutes per game. I get it. When one guy is scoring 26.5 points per game, there really isn't much room for anyone else. That's part of why we don't like picking on or picking up one-star teams. But for the love of God, you have to find something. Of the OG's 3 other non-Flagg or non-Jay Laster starters, they are combining to average 15 points. Cooper Flagg is accounting for 38% of their offense. It's not sustainable. This is why we wrote this team off. Not only because of their one-star status, but because the rest of the roster has been mid. And now, as their top guy hasn't looked as unbeatable, he has not looked as unstoppable, they're stumbling. Surprise, surprise. We're back on a couple broadcast games. We're finally getting those back. I believe we've got the end to the strike in the near future. So we should be back on some broadcast games. We'll be back, of course, with some Marsh mobiles. And then back here, hopefully with a camera on. If you don't like the way I look, hopefully not for you. We'll talk to you then.